You scroll through the news and feel a low hum of dread, even though nothing in your life has changed. You get a mildly critical comment from someone at work, and it sticks with you for hours while the 10 good things that happened today barely register. You feel a spike of anxiety about a social situation that, rationally, you know is completely manageable, and you wonder what is wrong with you. Here's the thing. Nothing is wrong with you. Your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is that it was built for a world that no longer exists. And once you see that, you stop fighting yourself and start working with the hardware you actually have. That is what this season is about. Welcome to MindScope. This channel is about the psychology of everyday life, not as a collection of tips, but as a set of real mechanisms that, once you understand them, change how you see yourself and the people around you. Every episode in this first season comes back to one idea. Your mind is not broken. It is running old software in a new world. And every episode will give you a practical move, something you can actually do with what you have learned. Today we start with the foundation. Why does the modern world feel so hard for a brain as capable and sophisticated as yours? To understand your own mind, you need to start about 200,000 years ago. Modern humans have existed for roughly that long. For almost all of that time, we lived in small groups, in environments that were relatively stable, where the threats were immediate and physical, where food was scarce, where social rejection could mean real danger, and where the future beyond the next season was genuinely unknowable. Your brain evolved to survive that environment, and it was extraordinarily good at it. The problem is that evolution is slow, very slow. The brain you are using right now is not meaningfully different from the brain your ancestors used on the savannah, but the environment you are trying to run it in is unrecognizable compared to the one it was designed for. Researchers call this evolutionary mismatch. The idea is that many of the psychological difficulties people experience in modern life are not signs of something gone wrong. They are signs of a system that is working exactly as designed, applied to a context it was never designed for. One group of researchers described the mismatch framework this way. Many of our contemporary problems, ranging from depression to chronic stress, stem from a mismatch between our evolved psychological mechanisms, which are designed to be adaptive in ancestral contexts, and modern environments, which present novel stimuli these mechanisms are not well suited to handle. Read that again and let it land. The struggle is not personal failure. It is a design problem. A very old design meeting a very new world. So what does old software actually look like in practice? Let us start with the most pervasive example, something researchers call negativity bias. Here is the pattern in plain terms. Negative events, threats, criticism, losses, bad news, consistently have a stronger psychological impact on us than positive events of equal or even greater size. The bad sticks. The good slides off. You can receive 9 compliments and 1 piece of criticism in the same conversation, and the criticism is what you replay tonight. Researchers reviewing a broad range of evidence described the pattern this way. Bad is stronger than good. Across learning, memory, attention, emotion, and social judgment, negative information reliably has more weight than positive information of the same objective size. Other researchers described 4 related patterns. Negative events are experienced as more powerful. They grow in impact as they approach in time. They dominate over positive events when both are present, and they produce more complex and varied responses. Now, why would this be? Think about what was actually dangerous in the ancestral environment. Missing a piece of good news, a patch of ripe fruit on the other side of the valley, was unfortunate. Missing a threat, a predator, a poisonous plant, a hostile group of strangers, could be fatal. The brain that spent slightly more cognitive energy on threats than on rewards was more likely to survive and pass on its genes. Negativity bias is not a flaw. It is an adaptation. A survival premium that now costs you in a world where the threats are mostly social and the bad news is mostly digital. Here is what I want you to hold before we go further. If your brain is systematically weighted to register threats more strongly than rewards, and if it cannot easily tell the difference between a saber-toothed threat and a passive-aggressive email, then what does that mean for how you move through the day? The answer is practical, and it changes what you do with your attention. Stay with me. Negativity bias has a close relative in the domain of decisions. Psychologists working in the 1970s and 1980s found that losses feel roughly twice as painful as equivalent gains feel good. Losing $20 and finding $20 are not mirror images psychologically. The loss hits harder. Researchers called this loss aversion. Again, this makes perfect sense in an ancestral context. In a world where resources were scarce and a bad season could be fatal, a loss was genuinely more consequential than an equivalent gain. The animal that treated a loss with extra urgency was more likely to survive than one that treated losses and gains as interchangeable. The weight asymmetry was adaptive. In a modern context, loss aversion shows up in ways that often work against us. We hold on to things, relationships, strategies, ideas, long past the point where they are serving us, because the prospect of losing them feels worse than the potential gain from something new. We play it safe in ways that cost us more than the risks we are avoiding. The software is running. It is just running on the wrong inputs. So here is where the evolutionary mismatch framework gets genuinely useful. It gives you a way to look at a wide range of everyday struggles and ask a single question. Is this a design problem or a me problem? Your brain registers a notification on your phone with the same low-level urgency response it once used to scan for movement in tall grass. That is not anxiety disorder. That is an attention system meeting inputs it was not calibrated for. Your brain attaches disproportionate weight to being left out of a group social event, even when the stakes are objectively low. That is a social threat response calibrated for a world where exclusion had real survival consequences. Your brain struggles to feel satisfied with what you have, always scanning for what is missing or at risk. That is a system built for scarcity operating in relative abundance. None of this is destiny. Knowing the mechanism does not trap you in it. It does the opposite. When you can name what is happening, you are no longer inside the automatic response. You have a moment of distance, and in that moment, you have a choice. Not a perfect choice, not an easy one, but a real one. That is what the tools in this series are about. The practical move for this episode is the simplest one in the series, because it is the foundation for every other episode. It is called a reframe, and it has one specific form here. When you notice a strong negative reaction that seems out of proportion to what is actually happening, ask yourself a single question. Is my brain responding to the actual situation, or to a situation it was calibrated for a very long time ago? This is not about dismissing the feeling. The feeling is real. The question is whether the situation actually warrants it. If you feel a spike of anxiety before a difficult conversation with your manager, that response is your brain treating social threat the way it once treated physical danger. Naming that clearly does two things. It reduces the intensity of the response, because part of what feeds anxiety is the meta-anxiety, the distress about having the distress. And it frees up your attention to actually think about the situation in front of you. Practice it this week with one recurring reaction. When you notice the negativity bias working, when the one critical comment outweighs the 9 good ones, pause and name it. My brain is doing the thing it was built to do. It is registering threat more strongly than reward. That is old software. What is the actual situation? You will not always be able to override it, but you will sometimes be able to work with it. And working with it, even sometimes, is far more useful than fighting it. If you find that anxious responses or low mood are significantly affecting your daily life, that is worth exploring with a qualified mental health professional. The framework here is a starting point, not a substitute. That is the foundation for everything that follows in this season. Your brain is not broken. It is running old software in a new world. And that single idea, once it really lands, changes the way you relate to your own mind. Subscribe if you want to keep going with this, because every episode in this season builds on it. Next week, we look at the most common way the old software trips you up, the loop that feels like problem solving, but is actually just worry wearing a productive mask. Overthinking. And the research on it is surprisingly specific about why your brain keeps doing it and what actually interrupts it. Before you go, I have a genuine question for the comments. What is the thing your brain responds to most strongly in modern life? The one that feels most out of proportion to what is actually happening? Phone notifications, social criticism, the news, something else? Tell me in the comments. Naming it is the first step to working with it rather than against it. I will see you in the next one.